Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another one. This is a deep dive, and this time we're covering one of the new layer 1 chains. It's called Sui. Let's get straight to it. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who don't know, this is my deep dive series where we cover different blockchains, different applications. We do a deep dive covering everything that you possibly need to know about them within one video. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it. We're not going to waste any time. We've got lots of things to cover today. So we're talking about Sui, something that I've been trying to get out for a while. So sorry about that, but we've eventually got time to kind of make these slides and record it. Like I said, we're going to cover lots today. So quite a few different things. I will leave timestamps in the description below so you can navigate to whichever section of the video you want to. So let's first of all start with figuring out kind of the main issues with the current layer 1 blockchains. Yes, I do know that we have the blockchain trilemma, but there are three main things that Sui says that other layer 1 blockchains kind of have trouble with. One of them being issues at the consensus level, one of them being issues with execution, and one of them being issues with storage. And Sui basically tackles all three of these, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail as we go along. So first of all, what is Sui? It's a permissionless layer 1 blockchain. It launched in May 22, and it does have a number of different features. First of all, very high TPS at 290,000 transactions per second. Again, we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail. This actually can scale even more than this. And Sui solves the three problems above by having this kind of what we call object-based design when it comes to smart contracts. Like I said, it can scale even more, so it scales horizontally, and it does this by validators adding more resources. It also helps to solve these problems with better tokenomics, and again, we're going to talk about that later. And Sui themselves say that they focus on three main sectors: gaming, commerce, and finance, which they believe to be the key areas of blockchain. So where did Sui come from? Well, we did have Facebook's own blockchain, Libra. I mean, I shouldn't say it failed. I'd say that they just decided that the current way that they were building wasn't the right way, and so the team actually decided to split into two. This is the team from Facebook. One of them decided to create Sui, and the other created Aptos. And I'm sure many of you know that these are two pretty highly valued crypto assets today, both of them being alternative layer 1 blockchains. And yeah, we're going to talk about them both actually in a little bit more detail. So first of all, let's look into the kind of key features around Sui and kind of what differentiates it from some of the EVM blockchains and some of the Cosmos chains, etc. that we have today, because Sui is neither of them. So first of all, let's talk about the key features. Number one, it has this object-based model. Number two, it uses the Move programming language. Number three, it has a completely different storage model, which is 100x cheaper than Solana. And of course, parallelization. So we'll talk about all of them first. So let's first of all talk about the object model. Now, on most blockchains, the basic unit of data storage is what we call an account. You might call this like your wallet address. Essentially, it's your kind of account. And digital assets like NFTs, tokens, or whatever, they're stored in every individual user account or a kind of smart contract. So for example, NFTs, they can kind of sometimes live within smart contracts that can create and manage them. Now, those smart contracts don't often contain a significant amount of information about the NFT, but rather they kind of point to an off-chain storage from detailed information. And we've seen this time and time again, where like the actual image related to some of these NFTs, it's not actually on the blockchain. It's not within these smart contracts. It's actually completely off-chain. Rather, the NFT is kind of just like a contract of authenticity. But it does make some difficulty for that specific digital asset to have significant value. And Sui tackles this with the object-based model. Now, transaction processing on other layer 1s also requires transactions to be handled sequentially, as there isn't really an upfront way to confirm that assets are independent of one another. So that's another thing. Validators must, especially with other layer 1 chains, validators have to often update the entire chain every block, and therefore must check that the action taken in one transaction doesn't conflict with another or any others. And ultimately, this causes lots of bottlenecks, increases latency, decreases the throughput of the chain, and just isn't very good. Now, what is the difference, and how does Sui tackle this? Well, assets on Sui are objects, and that's the basic unit of data storage. So essentially, rather than focusing on addresses, Sui focuses on every asset being an object, and that has independent characteristics that are not stored within smart contracts, and those are a key and a user ID. Now, when everything is an object, you know exactly which transactions are related, and the system knows how to segment these different groups of transactions, and every group can be processed in parallel. So ultimately what it means is that if there are transactions that don't conflict with one another, Sui can process them in parallel, whereas with layer 1 blockchains, there's no way for the actual ledger itself to identify whether or not transactions conflict with one another. There's no way, so validators have to consistently update the whole state of the chain, whereas on Sui they don't. And that means that on Sui you can have greater throughput and better latency. This image here that I did find online kind of helps to show you kind of visualize what I've basically said. So, you know, with the address-centric model, which is what we used to on all the current layer ones that we use today, here, look, you can see Bob is sending one USDC to Alice. Now, with the address-centric model, you got two updates in the ledger. You got to update that Bob has lost one USDC and Alice has gained one USDC. However, when we use the object-centric model, you can see that this is different. Because we're using the object being USDC, we can just see that the owner of this has changed from Bob to Alice, and this means that you only have to update the ledger once. As you can see, that is much more efficient. Sui uses this Rust-based language called Move. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, but you know, I'm not the most technical, so and I'm also not a developer, so I find it a little bit hard to kind of appreciate Move as such. But from what I can tell, from what I've read from others, and again, you're going to have to just do your own research a little bit on this. The Move language has some superior elements than that of Solidity and Rust, although it is a Rust-based language. Other kind of features around Sui is this idea of infinite scalability. Now, as I mentioned before, Sui can process up to 290,000 transactions per second. That's in its current form. Actually has an achievement for also doing the most transactions in one day, being 65 million. That is an actual world record at the moment for how many transactions a blockchain can do in one day. Now, as I mentioned, it can scale further with more tech, and validators can do this by horizontally scaling. They can continue to add more hardware to their validator stack, and in doing so they're able to process more transactions. Now, how on earth can a chain even process something like this? Well, we first need to understand that there are two types of transactions that users can do on Sui, or users do on Sui. They're called single owner transactions and shared object transactions. So single owner transactions are what I basically just showed you above. Here you got just Bob sending one USDC to Alice. It's basically sending one asset, minting an NFT. Now, the reason why this is a single owner transaction is because the network already knows that you own that asset. Only you can control it. And because of that, these kind of transactions don't need to go through consensus. The network already knows what's going on here. And so these transactions can all be grouped together, processed in parallel, because the change of value of one owned object doesn't impact the chain in value on another owned object. It's just one object moving from one place to another. However, with shared object transactions, it's a little bit different. So these are often things like DEXs, multiple owners, multiple assets, or really more complex smart contracts. These transactions do have to go through consensus, and that's because when one asset is moving to another, the network needs to be able to completely know what's going on, because there isn't just one person controlling it. As you can see, there's multiple owners, multiple assets. However, each shared object is still independent of other objects, and related transactions can be grouped together and processed in parallel. But generally, single owner transactions don't need to go through consensus. Shared object transactions do. And when we're looking at single owner transactions, these are the ones that can actually be scaled to 290,000 transactions per second. There are a number of other features as well. First of all, stable gas, account abstraction built in with the multi-batch transactions, and we'll talk about this shortly. Sponsored transactions at smart contract level, social media account wallet integration, and rebates when removing data off the network. So first of all, let's talk about batching. The Sui network can actually add 1,024 transactions in a batch to execute in one go. So for example, let's say if you had one wallet and you wanted to send 100 USDC to another wallet, you then wanted that to convert into Sui, the native token. You then wanted to use that Sui to mint an NFT. You can batch all of this in one go and then execute it. And if any one of those transactions weren't to go through, the whole system would revert. And you can do this up to 1024 transactions. So batching certainly helps with scaling. Second thing is, as we mentioned, Sui is actually the only stable gas fee model in Web3 at the moment. Gas always remains flat, and essentially they're able to do this because every day, essentially, there is a vote by validators to quote the gas based on the hardware that they're running. Now, if the gas is too high, they're going to get less share of the rewards. If the gas is too low, they won't make a profit. So validators are actually incentivized to keep gas within quite a tight range, because if it does, then it just wouldn't work. And this is a really, really interesting mechanism that we haven't really seen on any other chain. And lastly, of course, we've got parallel transactions as well. So that's kind of what we just mentioned, how like these Bob sending 1 USDC to Alice is completely independent from Jim sending 1 USDC to Pam, and therefore these transactions can be processed together because they're completely unrelated to one another. As we mentioned before, sponsored transactions at the smart contract level is really, really cool, especially when it comes to gaming and things like that, where these games can actually sponsor users' wallets to do these transactions, and therefore a lot of the technical stuff to do with wallets and paying gas fees and stuff can be completely abstracted away from the user. That's ultimately what we need if we want to get 1 billion people into Web3. And then the second thing is the social media account wallet integration. I mean, we are seeing this with certain other apps, especially around DeFi, with account abstraction and kind of email, Gmail, Twitter logins. But the fact is that Sui have actually got this with their main wallet at a wallet integration level, and so you can actually use ZK login to access your wallet with Web2 with your Web2 accounts essentially. There are some security risks with that. I personally wouldn't do it, but I think if you want to get more people on board into crypto, you need to have better stuff than what we have today. I think people are generally just more comfortable with a login and password rather than a seed phrase. So these are all the kind of main features with Sui. As you can see, there's loads of stuff here, and I think all of this makes the technical elements of Sui really, really, really good. Moving on, I think it will be good to compare the two Move layer 1 blockchains that we have at the moment, Aptos and Sui. So I've got this chart here that basically compares a lot of the different features. In terms of TPS, very, very similar. We've talked about how Sui is able to manage it. They both have they both use the Move virtual machine. However, Sui does have a slightly different version of Move as the kind of contract language that it uses. Gas fees are fairly similar, although slightly cheaper on Sui at 0.0023 cents nowadays. Proof of stake, both of them similar validators. It is a little bit more expensive to run a Sui validator than an Aptos validator, but both of them are very expensive, especially when you compare it to running an ETH validator. Block production time and time to finality is very similar, although Sui is slightly quicker. Aptos has on-chain governance. Sui doesn't just yet, but I believe they will do in a matter of time. And both of them are not EVM compatible, so very, very similar there. Here you can see some metrics on kind of tokenomics as well, in terms of circulating supply, token supply. Again, we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail later. One of the key features of both of these is very, very high inflation. I think this is one of the things, again, that we're going to talk about later. So major differences really. Sui TPS has been tested on their own testnet, whereas Aptos hasn't. Aptos has governance in place. Sui doesn't just yet. There are some differences in token inflation too, but otherwise they are generally fairly similar. I think Sui from a tech perspective perhaps is slightly different, but I think both of them offer a very good ecosystem when it comes to a technical level for a blockchain. So looking at the metrics as well, I think one of the things that let me just see if there was anything else there. No. Was there anything else here? No. So one of the things that I like to look at is kind of metrics, especially when comparing with other layer 1 blockchains. I took this screenshot from only a couple of days ago, so I doubt it has changed that much. But you can see in terms of daily active addresses, Sui is pretty much at quite low down. I mean, Aptos has got almost 7 to 10x more in daily active addresses compared to Sui. I wonder whether this is just due to Sui having a little bit of an immature ecosystem. However, I mean, you could say the same about Sei, and Sei has almost double. So that is interesting, although we'll kind of have to wait and see how this does change over time. Sui can certainly does process a decent amount of daily transactions. I mean, certainly not anywhere near the level though where you'd like it to be, which is what Solana has at the moment. TVL DEX volume still fairly low, as well as the fees generated, but that's to be expected. I think ultimately what I would like to see is this to go up by a factor of 100x really. I think I'd like to see daily active addresses on Sui to go to 100x, and I think that would really tell you if you've got a really active, engaged ecosystem or not. Not necessarily, of course, because you can see, look, things like Near protocol have got 1 million daily active addresses, but most of these are concentrated around just one app. But I think just in general, just a lot more than 20,000 daily users. I think that's really quite small. I think one thing that does concern me is that the daily active addresses have just kind of plateaued significantly across the second half of last year. Really just hasn't got traction going. Peaked early summer 2023, stagnant since then, even downtrending. Daily transactions are pretty similar, was like 3 to 4 million daily transactions, but now just between 1 and 1.5 million. DeFi ecosystem, however, is doing pretty well. You can see TVL's up only, DEX volume's doing well. So yeah, just some interesting metrics that I thought would be good to show you as well. So Sui is actually the native token for the Sui blockchain, of course. It's used for staking, governance, gas, money. You can use it in DeFi and things like that. Now, when I was actually making these slides, the market cap was 850 million and with an FTV of 7.7 billion, low float, high lock supply. As you can imagine, with a lot of these layer ones that are coming out nowadays, these VC-backed L1s, they have like 10% circulation and 90% locked. Similar case here. By the time you're watching this, the price is going to be completely different, because as of like a few minutes ago, I just rechecked the price, and Sui's been absolutely sending it. It's currently $1.42 as of recording. In future, it could be lower, it could be higher. I mean, I don't really know which way things are going to go. There are some big unlocks again that we're going to talk about, but currently that gives it a market cap of 1.6 billion and an FTV of 14 billion. Now, for comparison, this is very similar, like a very similar circulating market cap to Sui, which we did a deep dive on not too long ago. But both of these are significantly lower than that of Aptos, which is, I'd say, the main competitor at the moment. So interesting to see. It's had a crazy run, like from 36 cents all the way up to $1.42 now, like, you know, a good 400-500% increase there. Is this going to continue? I mean, I don't really know, but we'll have to wait and see. I think it's hard to know, but you know, the market can be irrational at times. It can be rational, and I think it's really hard for me to predict which way things are going to go from here. Probably it was a little bit easier around here when things were a little bit more steady, but since then, you know, the price has doubled. And when you've got such a large market cap and FTV, it's a lot harder for something like this to go to 28 billion FTV than it was from before. These were the Sui token distribution. The main interesting thing here is that 50% is actually managed by the Sui Foundation. Can you count that as being locked? Potentially. So, I mean, potentially like $7 billion worth of assets are kind of locked and managed by the Sui Foundation at the moment. Plus, you've got another 10% with the Treasury. I mean, that does mean that, you know, Sui themselves, the foundation, and Miston Labs, the Treasury, do hold quite a significant amount. Is this a good thing? Potentially. I mean, I don't think they are going to dump on us anytime soon, and they probably need this to last them decades. Okay, maybe not decades, but at least many years. So I think that is something good to see potentially. Main thing is the unlock. So I think here we are as of today on this black dotted line. We've still got a little while of like normal inflation to come. But then the big inflation comes when we go into June and July. And as you can see here, early contributors, the Treasury, Series A, Series B investors, community as well. Big unlock here. So, you know, June, July is kind of what we have to look into. Supply from now till the end of the year, aka like 2025, it's going to 3x. So we're around about 1 billion at the moment in terms of circulating supply, but this is going to be 3 billion by the end of the year, and it's going to be 2.4 billion by July time. So I think it's really interesting to see kind of where things are going to go in around this time period. Now, coincidentally, Miston Labs will be hosting a really big event in Paris around April 24th, which is just a little bit before we see these unlocks. So yeah, I wonder if that's going to help with their unlocks. I don't know, but I thought I'll just mention that. Now let's talk about the Sui ecosystem. Now 117 million Sui tokens that the ecosystem fund has to develop this ecosystem. So that's a decent amount of money. Hopefully, this causes the TVL to go into the billions. Currently just over 200 million, but this is going up only. As we mentioned at the start of this video, one of the features that Sui has is the ZK sign-in. So I took a screenshot from my own wallet. Here you can see you can either sign in with Google, Twitch, or with a ledger. I think it's interesting, Twitch being one. I think part of the reason being is that Sui really want to tap into the gaming ecosystem, and I think having something like this is pretty good. So integrating with Web2 social media giants is, I think, going to be an interesting way. You can, of course, use your seed phrase as normal, which is, I think, probably the way that most of you guys, crypto native people, are going to do it. But I think for people new to crypto, they probably will be using some of these ZK sign-in stuff. Generally, quite a nice wallet. You can actually bridge into Sui using Wormhole. So you can use Portal. This is the way that I've been using it. So you can go from Solana to Sui just like this. Pretty easy, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can potentially farm a Wormhole airdrop as well whilst you're at it. So as you can see here, TVL going up only. This is as of a week ago, so I think it's actually closer to 300 million now, and there are some decent applications on here as well. So let's talk about some of them. First of all, we've got Heydai, I believe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but liquid staking, decent yields when paired with Sui. As you can see, we're looking at a 35% APR for an LSD and native token pairing there, so that's very good. Cetus, which is the leading DEX, 45 million TVL, currently getting like 20 million daily volume as well. It's the leading DEX. Some very decent yields as well. We're looking at like 240% for Sui USDC, double digits for your stable coins, 30% for your LSD and Sui, which I think is also really nice. So generally, yeah, very good yields there. It uses the Pith Oracle as well, which is one of the newer tokens that have come out. Next, we've got Navi, money market, 70 million TVL, decent yields across the board. You can see 20% plus in stables, 20% plus in Sui as well. Yeah, can't complain there. Good yields. Please bear in mind that there is smart contract risk for all of these apps. But yeah, next we've got this is called Bluefin. It's an order book DEX. I mean, it looks very similar to many of the other order book DEXs that we have today. They don't have too many options, but you can trade Sui perps on here as well. Fees will be 0.045% for taker, and maker will be 0.01%. Next, we've got Typus. They have these option products, these kind of vaults that you can deposit, covered calls, put sellings, things like that. Personally, I'm not a fan of these option vault products. I think typically in the long term they don't do so well, but if they are giving you their governance token as emissions, that can negate some of the losses that you may occur with this. But what I wanted to show you was, look, these are all native apps. These aren't on any other chain. I think it's really good to see. We've got a wide variety of applications, including LSDs, DEXs, perps, money markets, option products. I think you need all of these apps if you want a thriving ecosystem. So Sui certainly is going in the right direction there. Gaming, I think on Sui is going to be massive. There's 60 plus games already signed up from 50 different gaming studios, with a big connection with some of these big Korean gaming giants. Now, I'm not much of a gamer, so I don't really know too much about these giants, but Netmarble, NHN, and NCSoft, apparently these are really big in Korea. I must say that most of the games are currently in development. There isn't really too much to play there. I did actually go and try and explore some of these out. I even tried some of them out because I thought, what better way to give a deep dive than to actually try some of this stuff out myself. So I played this game called Panzer Dogs, animated like tank shooter game. I think this game was perfect for something like Miniclip, which is something that we used to play as kids in the UK quite a lot. Great thing was that a lot of the wallet stuff was completely abstracted away, so I didn't really know that I was even playing a game. I love stuff like that, so I think that's really good. They do have some like really cool looking games on here, but as I mentioned, most of them are still in development, so we have to wait for them to come out. But I think either way, good to see that Sui is going hard on gaming. You can see that yourself from, having things like a sign-in with Twitch integration. They really, really want to go hard on that. So I think gaming and Sui is going to be they're going to go hand in hand together, essentially. And I wonder if they can really tackle the likes of Avalanche, who I think probably out of all of the layer 1 chains, Immutable and Avalanche seem to be like the gaming chains to be. I wonder if Sui can kind of come and compete with them when it comes to that. In terms of VCs, Sui raised $300 million at a $2 billion valuation. You can see that it's currently 7x up from that. So these VCs are eating very nicely. They include A16Z, which is one of our favorite ones, of course. They've moved to the UK now as well, so I'm a big fan of them. Coinbase Ventures as well. So, you'll probably recognize a lot of these: Standard Crypto, Redpoint, Electric Capital. You may recognize a lot of these as well. Now, let's talk about the team, because I think the team here is really, really important. If we look at the top here, we've got Ivan, Adenyi, Sam, and George. I think those are like the main players in the Sui ecosystem. Sam is actually this chap over here. He's actually the founder of the Move language. I think that's always great. Ivan is the CEO, actually. He previously worked at Apple for 10 years. And Adenyi is one of the more interesting ones as well. He has lots and lots of experience. HSBC, JP Morgan, previously worked at Novi. I've been watching a lot of his interviews recently, and he talks really well and explains a lot of the stuff around Sui really well. So yeah, really good to see. These were the two interviews that I did watch. This one by Glitchwire, Glitchwire, I should say. Really recommend watching this one about kind of just getting an idea of what Sui is. And this one was from Token Terminal, a lot more technical, but really explaining in depth how Sui works from a technical perspective, looking at the object-based model, how the TPSs work, the different types of transactions, and kind of how they're going to try and get Sui to be the #1 blockchain around in crypto today. So yeah, he speaks really well and seems like a good guy. So last but not least, we've got to move on to the bull case and of course the bear case. Let's first of all talk about the bull case. So I think first of all, the Move language firstly seems to be superior in terms of security compared to other languages. Again, I'm not a technical expert or a developer, so I'm taking this with a pinch of salt. Take this with a pinch of salt, I should say. But I think generally tech-wise, Sui is really good. We talked about the transaction per second. We talked about the object-based model. We talked about a bunch of the other features as well that Sui has at a consensus level. I think lots of that stuff is really, really good. The team is stacked. Many experts across various different industries, including the founder of the Move language themselves. As we mentioned, the ecosystem is growing. TVL is going up. They are doing better than some of the other layer ones even. Lower market cap compared to other layer ones, yes, but we'll talk about the bearish case on that as well shortly. And I think in terms of a gaming narrative, Sui can certainly play a big role there as well. But I think in terms of the bear case, there are a few things that I think are really important for me to mention. First of all, the unlocks. Just be careful because those unlocks, I'm not sure what these VCs are going to want to do when they get their tokens coming out in June, July time. I think also there is significant competition. Aptos and Movement Labs, these Move language chains could potentially get their moment, and I think kind of are fragmenting the potential market cap here, because I think, imagine if you had Aptos and Sui in one, you'd have a super chain there really, which I think will be able to capture a lot more of that inflow. You do also have the old L ones like Solana, Avalanche, Cardano, tried and tested ones, and we've got the new layer ones as well, like Say, which we mentioned recently on the channel, Monad, which is coming out in future, Bearer Chain, which is coming out. Other kind of bear things, bridging is still potentially a little bit difficult. No EVM compatibility. Is this a big deal or not? The Sui teams tend to think not. I don't think it is a big deal either, but I think it certainly does make things a little bit more tricky when it comes to building applications on Sui. As I mentioned, I think for now, the app quality is subpar, the order book decks, the option products, etc. They are subpar. Yes, TVL is growing, but I think that we don't really have that killer kind of app like we had with Ethereum, with Aave and Uniswap, or with Arbitrum with the likes of GMX. Or with Solana with the likes of Jupiter. I think Sui really needs to get one of those kind of killer apps to really get traction going there. I think Move also is not tested in the same way that Solidity has been tested in the crypto space. And I think also one other point just to add is that a lot of stuff is in development still. All of these games, all of these apps. So we are just speculating on the future of what Sui can potentially bring here. I mean, ultimately that's what crypto is about, speculation. But I thought I'd just mention that point too. So all in all, I think Sui is a really interesting blockchain, something that has really caught my attention, especially from a technical perspective. I am definitely going to be continuing to play around with Sui. Potentially we'll be making more videos about Sui if you guys are interested as well. But yeah, today all I wanted to do was cover everything that you probably need to know about Sui if you're coming to Sui for the first time. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're watching this on Twitter, give it a like, give it a retweet. Let me know your thoughts as well. Drop a reply in the comment section below. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll be back with plenty more deep dives in the near future.